Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now.
Is it all good?
It's all good.
All right. That's what we want to be, all good in the hood. Brains, we have Wai Te Awe Awe. I'm so proud of myself. I practiced that. She is from New Zealand. Okay, we went further than Australia this time, Brains. We are in New Zealand. We are down in the land down under. There's something going on down in that part of the world. I'm calling it the root chakra of the world. There's a vortex that is swirling. There's an energy that's moving, that is moving across the plane. And they're already at 5G. They're already on that frequency. They know what's happening. And they're really here to share with us to raise our level of awareness. And this is a single mother working hard at her career to help mentor other individuals in business, especially women. Let me see, what else is she doing there? She's a caregiver for her brother. I want to talk to her about that. I went back and watched some of her videos, and she is really talking about resilience and how to follow through when somebody has a challenge and how not to let that overcome us, to be transformational. That's why she's a transformational coach. So let's welcome her to the edge. Wai Te Awe Awe. How are you, Queen?
I am very well. And firstly, I would like to say thank you and kia ora. Kia ora to the audience that is joining us here today or whenever you may be listening. My name is Wai. My full name, however, is Wai Te Awe Awe Karoria. So Wai Te Awe Awe is how I obviously present myself.
Mm-hmm.
Wai means water. So from Hawaii through to New Zealand in the Polynesian Islands, it means water. So I thought I'd just share a little bit about myself. Yes, I do come from New Zealand. I was born there. I am from what is known as the east coast of New Zealand, North Island. And where I'm from is a small town, which most people will never have heard of, called Ruatoria. Now, that particular part of the country is probably famous for many things, but more predominantly, our mountain is the highest first point on earth to see the dawn of a new day. So when it comes to a new year, where I come from, our mountain is the sacred spot for us, where we invite in the new dawn of that new year. So that's
it's an energy source, it's an energy center. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. And so yes, I come from Ruatoria. I was born there but grew up in Melbourne, Australia. So I would like to pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the land where I sit, the Wurundjeri tribe of the Kulin Nation. Pay my respects to ancestors past, elders present, and their emerging leaders of tomorrow.
And see, you're very respectful because, again, people don't pay homage to the First Nations people, the first people that inhabited this earth that we know of, the people with an extra chromosome. So what is it like being a Kiwi?
I'm probably a bit of a...
We're not talking about the little brown fuzzy fruit with the green inside and the seeds. It goes much deeper than that.
It does. Well, April, that's something that I only came to learn later in life. So my mother and I left New Zealand. I was 6 years old. So I grew up away from home, away from tradition, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And went back. I was 19 years old when I went back to New Zealand, and I studied there for 3 years, and then I ended up staying 6 years in total before moving back to Melbourne. But if I think about what being at home means to me, so New Zealand is home, Australia is home, but it's different home. it's identity. I know that as a Māori woman, that it's really important to understand not only who I am, but where I come from, and to have that connection to land, but also community, family, etc.
So how do you show up in the world? I know that you are from this magical, mystical place to us here in the metropolitan hustle bustle city of, I'm in San Diego, which I'm originally from Los Angeles, but all of that noise that's going on, and you're in a small, tranquil kind of place. How do you magnify your energy? What are you doing there? How are you showing up?
Yeah, that's really good. The thing is, in today's world, most of what is happening is virtual, so to speak, right? Because we can be disconnected, and let's face it, we've all been through being disconnected in these last 2 years, okay? Because we've had to. So for me, it really does start with, I know it's cliche, but you got to look inside. And the reason why I think that's most important to start with is because it's something that I didn't do forever until recently. So I think it starts there, but you really do have to connect. And that's what, community comes down to. So we're very community orientated as say, Māori Pacific Islanders as well. It really does come down to, understanding who you are, where you come from. And I don't know if that's cliche, but I know how important that is. I feel as though a lot of us can be lost because we're disconnected from that community, that sense of growing up, learning your language. So for me, I'm not fluent in speaking Māori. However, I come from that generation where my mother was she could speak fluently, but she was not allowed to speak the language in public. It was frowned upon. So I'm of the generation where we were not taught, and then we're raising the generations that are being taught from from a very early age. Right. So it's really, really important, and it will be important for my son to know who he is, where he comes from, how he connects back to the community, back to our tribe. So we're still tribal, and having that sense of self. And that really does come down to, for me, when I'm at home, that I know that I'm home. It's almost as if, it's like when you go, my mother's long gone now, but it's like going home to a family home. You're there, and just that layer of kind of peace sweeps over.
And the purpose. So who you are, you've identified with that, you're deeply rooted in that. But how do you help others as a transformational coach edit and shift? Because, I'll tell you, a lot of people, some people are ashamed of who they are. They have let society dictate and moderate and modulate their conversation, their identity, who they are, what they represent, because they want them to assimilate into whatever that culture is. And here you come. Why? And you're just going to shake up everything. You're going to ask people to transform. What gives you the gift and the abilities to help people transform themselves?
Well, firstly, you just described who I was. Now, when we're young, or maybe in life we think we're wise. I remember growing up, my mother always said, the greatest gift that I have is that I know nothing. And I always thought, as you do, that I knew what that meant. And I know that I was lucky in some ways growing up because I was very attuned, but April, I knew nothing, and I had a wake-up call just 14 months ago. But that wake-up call had been an awakening period of years of dissatisfaction. Like a lot of people, the story is typical. I came home from New Zealand at 26. My mother was dying at the time. I got a job because that's what you do. And all of a sudden here I am kind of finding myself in this hamster wheel of, life. I was quite successful because I was a hard worker. So, I sort of would dot the I's, cross the T's and have a lot of success, but I was never happy. I was never satisfied. I knew there had to be more to it than the existence that I created, but I attached myself to material. You know what I mean? So I was attaching myself to things or, climbing this corporate ladder, thinking that if I did that, if I worked hard, I would get recognized and that I would achieve all this stuff. What happened as a result is I'd get to the sort of the peak of that mountain and I'd stand there and I'd be like, oh, wow, all right, where's the next mountain? Like what's it about? So I was very disconnected. And for someone who grew up in a very spiritual household, I can't believe how disconnected I was. But I thought, because we get taught very young that what it is you get a job, right? And then you go out, and once you start earning a lot of money, then that's what success is. Unfortunately, that's not true. So I was in this, I guess, a holding pattern of knowing that there was something awry, just having zero idea what that was. And I believe what that is something really simple. I think we're just tuned into the wrong radio frequency. And, it's like, and this is showing my age now, but if you consider an analogy of where you listen to the static on the radio, something's crackling and you just got to fine tune it. So it's not that I didn't have the capability. It's not that I, wasn't uninspired or, was completely disconnected. Right. I just tuned into the wrong radio station. And as soon as I made the slightest switch, all of a sudden, all this new information hit me. And it's like I arrived, I landed exactly where I needed to at the right time to hear the message. But I could only arrive there after having climbed so many mountains and realizing actually something's not going on here.
But what's happening? So you're taking all of that, but how are you taking all that you've learned and pouring into others? How do you have how do you have the ability and the frequency to help others transform? And what does that mean to you, a transformational coach? People toss that around. That's a big $25 word.
And I agree. In fact, I think transformation is what it is. The word coach, and I've been a coach for a long time, so I'm like, facilitator. Ultimately, my job is to facilitate that transformation. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing, April, people have to be ready. It doesn't really matter what you throw at someone. I know I attended all the leadership courses over the years, and yet it still took me up to age 41. But 41.
Oh, you're still a kitten, honey. Don't worry.
Thank you. I'll take that. No, but it took me a long time. So one, I agree, you have to be ready. And when you're ready because you're tearing your hair out. You're dissatisfied. You're sitting in a space where you're like, something's not right here. So that's where you're ready. Now, my job is really to help you find that clarity, to ask you the tough questions, to actually ask you, what's important to you. The problem that I find with a lot of people is, and I know because I did it for years, we get stuck in this cycle where we ask ourselves all the wrong questions. It's like, why am I unhappy? And then what we do is we proceed to educate ourselves. Well, we're unhappy because we're overworked and we don't like our job. Or we ask ourselves, oh, what should I do next? Maybe it is a new job. So we proceed to ask ourselves a whole bunch of questions. And then we, the unqualified, or the people in our lives who we're sort of venting at, start to, feed us with statements or answers that actually aren't the right questions. So my job, firstly, is to help people find that clarity and ask them, go through the exercise of knowing your why. I know my why, but my why isn't that I want to provide for my family and, make sure they have a great life.
What is your why? What is your why? What is your why?
Yeah, well, look, April, I grew up I know not tough environment in terms of I didn't know at the time, but at face value, upon reflection, my mother left New Zealand. I was 6 years old, and very early on, we found ourselves literally days in a situation where all of my mother's money was stolen. And instead of returning home at the time, to the safety of family and friends and work and certainty, she decided to stay here. As a result, there were foster homes, there were women's refuges, there were, living not the way people would traditionally live. So hitchhiking around Australia, so many different elements of growing up, which have built a certain level of resilience and resolve that you can't just kind of make up for yourself. So that comes from my childhood. It comes from this example that was my mother, who instilled in me, I guess, the tools to pull myself through anything. And it's by finding connection to this little girl who, I think I must have been 10 years old, had seen, even in those short 4 years, my mother pull us through this life, that my why is connected to her, even though she's been past 14 years.
I'm here, but you know what? I'm hearing a lot of emotion.
Yes.
I'm hearing a lot of emotion, a lot of trepidation. You're still there. There's something there, and you can stay there. People always want us to move from a certain place to make others feel comfortable. But you don't have to edit. You don't have to shift. You stay right where you are until you get what you need. It's all right. And that can be 2 years, 5 years. That could be your entire journey. As long as you're aware why, as long as you're aware of it and you use it in its best light and its glory to raise your son, to keep your traditions, to have a stakehold in your country, men and women, in your business. There's something that's going on, and I'm feeling it through the Zoom call, okay, that you are there, and you're not finished with your journey. You're not finished with your journey. You've got a lot of work. What are you pouring into your son? You're a single mom.
Yes.
And your mother did a lot for you, but what are you doing for him?
Well, hopefully not ruining him, April.
Well, you know what? A little spoiler never hurt nobody.
Oh, well, not spoiled, but here's the thing when it comes to that, being a single parent. My responsibility has been, and I'm most proud of, the fact that he has an amazing relationship with his dad, that we nurture that. So we don't have a formal arrangement. It is his dad will pick him up after daycare, feed him, drop him off. I do the nighttime routine, drop him off at daycare in the morning, and then he'll go there, stay there when he stays there. We're flexible. And for me, and I know for his dad too, it's not about us. So what I'm doing is just keeping him at the center and knowing that he has this great relationship with his dad, and that I contributed to that. I like to take the glory, because there are so many situations that are different.
They can set it up different, and there's two parents. Hopefully we raise our children, because your relationship with his dad is not going to be his relationship with his dad, and it shouldn't be. We should be open to that. There's going to be some kerfuffle along the way, but there can also be a lot of joy, and people have to, put on their big girl and big boy panties to be able to accept that. Not only are you pouring into your son, but you're a strong advocate for your brother, who, based upon the videos that I've seen, has a challenge with mental illness. That's another thing that people, have a lot of shame associated. Brains, it is what it is. Some people have, heart disease. Some people have diabetes. Some people have, buck teeth. Everybody's got something, really.
Mm.
But, you were saying how not to give up, how to stay resilient, how to stay in the fight. You went through 10 professionals for 14 months trying to find answers. And then you went outside the box, paid for a consultant, and within 45 minutes, you pretty much found a solution or a way to a solution. Is he, number one, is he doing better since you've done that?
So the issue has been, and I realize that the rules will be different depending on where people are, but he has been what I'm sure we're all familiar with, a ward of the state. So with that comes limitations. Limitations as far as he gets prescribed something, doesn't matter who you are, no one can say, hey, that's not right. But what we do have as a family is the right to say, hey, we're not happy, which is what we kept doing. So is he okay? In short, not yet. But will he be okay? Finally, after the fight of our lives, and we've only won round 11, there's still a war to wage here. And I mean that in a good way. I mean a war against a system that's set up to fail us as society. And he will be okay, is the short answer to that one. He will.
Okay, well, that's good, as long as he has an advocate, as long as he has someone to speak on his behalf. We have to speak for the voiceless. I do that a lot of times with the underserved and overlooked in my community, the Black, the homeless, the drug addict, the prostitute. There's a story there. I'm all about emotional intelligence and raising and investing in relationship capital. That's our future. And you know a lot about that, because not only are you an advocate, a strong woman of conviction, but you know about sales and marketing.
Yeah, I forget I do.
What do you sell and what do you market? And what are some great tips in that area?
Well, listen, I come from a background, April, of 15 years selling basically everything except the cars. Okay?
Wow.
But listen, I mean, I want to shed some light on that, and hence why I connected with yourself. Is firstly, in sales is great communication,
right?
And that is as simple as it is.
And it's a psychology. People don't understand. Sales is a psychology, because what you are doing is you are providing a service, a machine or whatever, to enhance. You're selling to value. People always look at sales as something sleazy. I find it very sexy and very intimate, actually.
Yes, well, and it is. And that is, in truth, that's what it is, because it is communication. And my expertise is that I understand, and I don't want to use jargon here, but the consumer decision-making process. All that means is that people go on a journey when it comes to anything. People either come from a space of, I have a need, and now they go out and look for a solution to that need, or they're in a position where they're not thinking about it, but if you present a solution to them, they might go, oh, hey, okay. So me now, my job is first and foremost, so I call my business the Why Project. And I want to be transparent about that. The Why Project is my journey of transformation. So I show up as I am, whatever that looks like, however that sounds, because
is that with or without all of that makeup you have right there?
You know what's hilarious? I've got everything, but I hardly wear any makeup. I'm made up today, but I'm like, yeah, that's like.
But you know what? Again, and the reason why I bring that to our attention is because a lot of times things are made up. They make up. You're living the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You put on this happy face for the entire world, and you're looking like the cat's drug in underneath. Again, you are selling something, your personality, your charm, your skill set. It's a lot into sales. So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah. And that's that's what I call the highlight reels. Like we live in this, we think, oh, that's what, like all of that stuff that we see, the beautiful stuff, that's not real. And if you ever like have a look at my Instagram page, you'll see all of this stuff, but like this get up, that's not real. Like this is just how we present ourselves, because people, April, sadly, that's what they want to see. So you give them what they want to see, but then you just show up as you are as well. So I show up, sometimes I think I'm funny, so I'm sharing bits of that. I don't know if I am funny, but like, just
think you're authentic. But, a lot of people like to market that word authenticity. Yeah. I tell them all the time, everybody can't show up authentic because sometimes it's ugly.
Yes.
Okay? Who you really are. And once you pull back the layers of that onion, your eyes start to water. How do you market that? How do you market yourself? Okay, because selling is one thing, but selling and marketing are two different things.
They are. And here's what I choose to do is I just show up as I am, and I will remind people, So the other week I went out for like a fancy dinner, too fancy for a 4-year-old, right? But anyway, I've worked hard this year. Let's go out to dinner. We've just come out of a lockdown hell. And so I'm like, great, I can get a reservation. And I took them to a fancy dinner. So the thing is with fancy dinners is people see the highlight reels. What did I do before I went to that fancy dinner? I just jumped on and did a live and just reminded people that, and at the time I was with my brother and my son and I was going through trauma. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this morning I woke up and life is like this. Now life is like this. And later on, you're going to see a completely different side of me. And that's real, but it's also not. Like, don't think that fancy dinners is like how it is. Like, that's just an aspect. So I just show up as I am. I'm not trying to be authentic. I'm just being myself.
Right.
If that means that I'm authentic, fantastic. But I'm not actually trying to do anything. I'm just trying to remind people that the stuff that we see on Instagram or all the different platforms, that all of that stuff isn't always real. So I just show up as me, good, bad, ugly. Sometimes I sound intelligent. Sometimes I'm like, what? But
it is what it is. You get what you get. Let me ask you something. This is a little tough question. You are the mother of a 4-year-old that is watching his uncle go through this, because you said, right before you went to dinner, you were going through trauma. What do you say to him about what the world is, how we have to deal with the cards that we are dealt, and to know that we are observers of our life? We are the gatekeepers. We are the people that are the watchers and the seers. How are you preparing him for what this world is? Because it can be cruel. Now, I don't always want to be cruel. I'm not the Debbie Downer, okay? I'm not the Debbie Downer. I am the eternal optimist, because there is going to be a healing for your brother. And he's trapped inside this shell, okay? But it's just like, do you guys have Cadbury eggs there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Chocolate on the outside. And then when you crack that sucker, it is ooey gooey, rich and chewy inside.
Yes.
Okay, so he's ooey gooey, chewy inside. But how are we going to get there? That's what we got to do. We got to get there. What are you telling that baby? Because he's like, and from a child's perspective, all he sees is the innocence of his son. He has not been indoctrinated with the ignorance of adults yet.
Absolutely. Well, and I want to keep this as PC, but at the end of the day, as real as possible. So that morning, I had the decision, like we all have a decision, that I needed to go to see my brother, and I had my son at home, which was unplanned. Now, I could have decided maybe I should rethink that, but I was like, well, I can't rethink that, and we'll just deal with it. So when we arrived, because my brother's stuck in this story cycle at the moment, and I'm sorry if there's listeners who may be triggered by this, because I get it and I respect that. But we walk in and my brother's smoking marijuana, and my 4-year-old is seeing basically my brother is just trying to self-medicate his way through having to take this medication, which has such a huge impact. And we walk in and I look at my son, I'm like, oh God, what was I thinking? And he said to me, he goes, I want to go back, sit in the car, Mama. And I said to him, I go, I'm sorry, son. And I explained, he's sick. I said, Uncle's sick, he's not well. It'll be okay. I've gone, I'm really, really sorry. I go, but Mama has to look after him.
Take your time, baby. Take your time. Take your time.
He's 4. So what do I do? Is that right? Is that wrong? I don't know. That's
real. You know what? It's real. And you know what? He's seeing it at 4.
Yeah.
Would it make a difference if he was 14? Would it make a difference if he was 24? Reality is what it is. What it is how you blanket that love around him and give him an explanation. If that wasn't somewhere that he was comfortable with, I get it. Let him go sit back in the car.
Well, half an hour later,
to know.
Yeah, half an hour later, once he'd shifted from that story, my brother, the 2 of them were in the park, April, and and none of that other story existed anymore. And that's what it's about. So unfortunately, there's layers that aren't great, but at the very core of it all is the connection. And I left them to play whilst I was doing what I had to do. And they were both present and they could see each other. And that's all that matters. The rest.
They were in the middle of the Cadbury egg. They were in the ooey gooey, rich and chewy part.
Yes.
Your son helped him crack the shell. He did. He's going to look back on this and he's going to have a conversation with him and with himself. I remember my uncle, this, that, and the other. These are choices that I will make. These are choices that my mother had to make. He will understand. I know it's tough. And, thank you so much for, being in a vulnerable space with us here on the edge. I know that you probably didn't imagine going there, but I'm telling you what we're feeling, because I'm with you. I'm in your feelings with you. What we're feeling right now, this is the holiday season here. We have been in this tremendous lockdown. We are being told and dictated, do we go to school? Do we take a vaccine? Are we able to wear a mask? Are we able to go outside? It's all mind control. So, hell, maybe we all should smoke some marijuana with your brother. It's not, it's not all bad. It is what it is. But if you are able to, again, find solace within yourself, because we can't give everything to everybody. We try, and we want to be their advocates. We want to be their saviors. We want to be the bridge that carries them safely across. But sometimes there's a weak link in the chain. And we have to accept that too, because, why, to whom much is given, baby, much is required. And you think that you are the only one that is struggling. Your brother is struggling to get outside of that Cadbury egg on a regular basis, and he's afraid and he's scared and he's trusting you to do what you do. And by the way, I commend you and I love you and I support you 110%, because a lot of people would just walk away and say, okay, well, he's a ward of the state. Bye-bye. They wouldn't fight for him still. So give yourself a pat on the back. Your son is looking at that. He's saying, you know what, look at my mother. She's a superwoman. She's taking care of me. She's taking care of Uncle. She's taking care of herself. He sees all of this. Yeah. And, a lot of people say, oh, well, the kids don't know. Phooey. The kids, they know everything.
They know everything. Believe me, they know everything.
And sometimes have a conversation with him and ask him what's his opinion. You'd be surprised. He might be like that other doctor that you found. Really, that have the answers, old souls. Again, you are in a very, very spiritual part of the world. You are. And it's not normal. It's not like the normal kids that are playing here. You are dealing with ancestral spirits and the earth. The earth talks to you there. You feel it. Ancestors have been buried on those lands. People are still being mistreated, but there's a lot of joy. There's a lot of victory there. And I know, and I can feel it, that you are a part of that. And I'm just so proud of you. So again, know that. And everybody else that's out there that is fighting for someone that has mental health challenges. Here in the United States, you call the police, they're supposed to be peace officers. They bring their peace all right, loaded. They don't even give you an opportunity. They gun you down in the street. We have to really be more vigilant and get a better understanding around mental health, because it's scary. We don't know when somebody is going to go from a flicker to a flame. We don't know if they're going to hurt themselves. We don't know if they're going to hurt you. We don't know if they're just going to, like a friend of mine, strip butt naked on a Southwest airline. That's what he did. Just took all his clothes off. We don't know what's going on inside that person's head. So that we're really scared. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the criticism sometimes that you get from people looking from the outside in?
Yeah, you know what? Can I just say that kind of doesn't have an impact on me. and I've always had that kind of resolve because, and I'll put it into context. I've always had that resolve because I don't know. I always I look at people and I think, well, what? Don't dress me down with your eyes, because firstly, I'm probably dressed better than you, and even if I'm not, I could be. So that's irrelevant. And that's that ego talking there. But on the flip side, I'm very conscious because I'm Māori, but I'm very fair. So my brother is dark, as maybe not as dark skinned as yourself, but only because he's inside most of the time. So he's very dark. He has, typical Māori features. And so he has always been seen by the law for the label, So I'm very mindful of having my brother outside of his little community because people will look at him. But here's the thing, April. The reality is those people are invisible. So just as long as he stays invisible enough that people don't sort of harm him or taunt him or anything like that, then I'm okay because I know that he's safe. But people are, sorry, listeners, but some people are stupid, and I'm always aware of that. But it doesn't, look, it's not about me at the end of the day. So I just need to make sure that I know who I am. And I don't care what other people think.
Well, you know what? And what I do is, I don't know. Sometimes I do care about what people think.
Yeah.
I do. Because we are trying to, again, assimilate into this thing called mainstream.
100%.
Whatever.
And that's true. That's still true, April. What I mean by that is I don't care what people think if I'm protecting my patch, because I'm like a lion, and I'm a lion, right? So it's like when I'm a lion, don't mess with me. When I'm not being a lion, I'm like everyone else who's puts on this facade and, tries to fit in and stay under the radar and, yeah.
But the thing about that too is make it a teachable moment. That's what I do. I share this story about this woman goes all in on me at the Target. Oh, girl, yeah. Because I had on my Black Lives Matter t-shirt and I'm rocking my afro and she's talking loud and she's, well, why aren't any one particular segment of the population's life more valuable, blah, 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 blah. And she's talking loud. And so I said to myself, you know, April, how are you going to show up? Are you going to scratch your eyes out? Are you going to be all on the gram? You know, what am I, you know, am I going to cuss her in the womb that she came from? Talk about her mama and all? No, I'm not going to do that. So what I did was I politely went over to her and said, hey, you know what? I don't know what experience you've had with people outside of your framework, you know, but let me extend you an opportunity to have a conversation. Let me extend you an opportunity to learn, you know, but we're not going to do it here in Target. We can do it over here at the Starbucks or whatever. I said, and you're not going to disrespect me. You're not going to talk loud about what I'm wearing. None of that. We're not going to do that today. It's going to be a teachable moment. She went from the 12th floor down to the basement. Her eyes got big, her mouth open, because, you know, I just had to call her out on it. But it was how, and it's what you do, you know, Brains. If, you know, if, for example, when your son shows out in the store, you know, what do? You want to discipline him, but it's how you do it. And then when you get to the car, you might do something else. But it's what you present to people, you know, and it's so hard. It's so hard. It's like me.
Yeah, you have to be I always think about it, when you know better, you do have to do better, you know, and that sucks sometimes, I'll be honest. But at the end of the day, those situations sometimes, you know, it really isn't about us, it's about that. So you did the right thing. Amazing.
And so I say that to say this, in this framework that you're creating, a new paradigm for people and this transformation, what they have to do is they have to sit with it. You know, they have to sit with it. You have to realize that my skin is not perfect. That's why I've got all this beautiful makeup. My hair is not perfect. That's why I wear hair options. But my heart is pure. My heart is pure. And that's what you want to do, is you want to really go deep into that. Before you try to transform me, I want you to recognize and realize who I am. I want you to share in that experience. I want you to love on me right where I am. Right in the middle of that Cadbury egg is something ooey gooey, rich and chewy. And you are working diligently on all aspects, be it what you're selling people, how you're marketing it to them, how you're being a parent, how you're being an advocate, how you're just being a woman that is not afraid to show her tears. And I commend you, again, like I say, for that. I'm walking that walk with you. We all are. We're all on a tightrope right now. We really are. So know that you're not alone, and do some self-care for yourself and find yourself some solace. Get away from the kid, the brother, the aunt, the uncle, and just find a sacred place, all of your own, so that you can regenerate, because you're doing a lot of heavy lifting, sister. You're doing a lot of heavy lifting, and it will drain you, but don't let it exhaust you. Because like I said, to whom much is given, much is required. That's why you're able to do what you do. That's why you have the bandwidth, because the universe and God gave that to you because you can carry the load. Okay?
Yes.
Tell my brains how to get in contact with you so they can reach out and touch you and love you and work with you and all that good stuff here on the edge. How do they get in contact with you, Wee?
Absolutely. Why? Well, I mean, my handle's the same everywhere, so it's just my name. So at WAI TE AWE AWE. So that's WAI TE AWE AWE again. And that's just on Instagram. Obviously, I'm on Facebook as well. But yeah, I mean, you know, follow along, connect, share. I always say pay stories forward, because it's through the paying of stories forward that allows others to also grow. So yeah, follow along.
And absolutely. And we're going to put all of your information at the end of this, but through story is how a lot of people they live. They grow by other people's experience. And I know down in Australia, the teachings of, again, like the Aborigines are a lot like the Native Americans here, and the Polynesian culture. That is how they recant history, is through story, is through music. So you've got to document this, journal it, be an advocate, get the support, like I said, that you need. Your brother's going to be okay. Because again, he's got that shell around him. Think about that. Next time you see him and you see that brownness, that's the chocolate. That's the chocolate. And then when you look at him playing with your son in the park, that's the gooey inside in the middle. Okay? 100%. All right. So I love you, my sister. Brains, go in, love, like, share, everything. Get emotional, get deep. That's what we want to do. You're going to free your mind and the rest will follow. Okay? Be colorblind. Don't be so shallow. All right? All right. I love you.
Love you too. Thank you.
All right. Bye, brains.
Bye.